As tensions between Israel and Iran escalate, the two adversaries are finding themselves in a fierce new chapter of open and long-range confrontation. As Iran vows strong response, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claims Tehran is striving to build nuclear bomb stockpile to destroy Israel. The big question is, can diplomats from the US, Qatar and Egypt broker a ceasefire even as the stakes continue to climb? Here's a report.
In a bold offensive, Israeli jets targeted advanced Iranian air defense sites across multiple provinces, delivering a powerful blow to Tehran's military assets. Israel claims its operation successfully dismantled key Iranian defenses, hitting sophisticated S-300 systems and underscoring Tehran's vulnerability in an open engagement. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed the mission as a definitive success, declaring that Israel's precision strikes achieved all objectives. Iran, however, counters this portrayal, downplaying the extent of the damage. While Tehran is claiming the strikes as limited in impact, top Iranian officials, including Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, cautions the attack could neither be downplayed nor exaggerated. Tehran's Revolutionary Guards issued a stark warning to Israel of bitter consequences, signaling that any misstep could lead to a rapid escalation. Iraq accuses Israel of using its airspace to attack Iran. It lodged a complaint at the UN. The UN Security Council is meeting to discuss Israel's attack on Iran. The meeting had been requested by Iran with the support of China and Russia. Iran has said that it will not retaliate to Israeli strikes if a deal is reached for a ceasefire agreement in the embattled Gaza Strip and Lebanon. As US, Qatari and Egyptian negotiators race against time to secure a broader regional ceasefire, the conflict's trajectory hangs in balance. As Israel's campaign chips away at Iran's defensive capabilities, questions loom over how Iran may respond if diplomatic efforts fail. With both nations entrenched in this new battleground, the region teeters on the edge of escalated warfare. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Syed Mohammad Marandi is a professor at the University of Tehran. He is now joining us live from Tehran. Professor, thank you very much for making time for us and welcome to the broadcast. I'll just start by reading you a comment here that we've got from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He says that Iran is making or striving to build nuclear bomb stockpile to destroy Israel. First of all, what do you make of that statement?
It's about as fake as the claim that the airstrikes were successful. Netanyahu has been making these lies, saying these lies for almost 30 years now. For 30 years, he's been saying that Iran is months away, weeks away from a nuclear capability, and he will continue to do so. And the claims about strikes on Iran, they are just as fabricated. Most of the missiles were down. None of the planes came anywhere close to Iran's borders. They stuck at least 100 kilometers away from the Iranian borders. They fired from afar. Most of the missiles were down, and we did not see any secondary explosions anywhere. And I think anyone who's been following the war in Ukraine, they know quite well that if S-300s are destroyed, there would be massive explosions. So I think it's best for people to be more wary about Israeli propaganda and Western propaganda. We heard the same thing with regards to Ukraine and how Ukraine was winning the war and that the Russians were failing. And now we see the Ukrainian army collapsing. So I wouldn't bet too much on the Israeli regime.
Professor, let me ask you this. Iran has vowed to retaliate. And there are some critics who say that if Iran does retaliate, this escalation could be worse and could be uncontrollable. What do you say?
Well, first of all, the Israeli regime says that they've destroyed our missile defense capabilities. So if they strike again, then they should have no problem. And they also said they destroyed our ability to make missiles. So obviously we won't be able to strike them very hard. So I think time will tell whether any of these two claims are true. And I think we all know quite well that both are false. But Iran has no option but to slap down the Netanyahu regime, because if it doesn't, then the regime will only become more aggressive. The regime is weak. We saw that for over a year now, they've been fighting to take Gaza, a dot on the map, and they haven't been able to do so. Remember, this is the same Israeli regime that decades ago went all the way to the Suez Canal, but now they can't take Gaza. In 1982, they invaded Lebanon and went all the way to Beirut in days. But now, after a month, they're stuck on the border with Lebanon, and Hezbollah is hammering them hard. So they failed there too. They failed in Lebanon, they failed in Gaza, and they failed with Iran. The longer the war lasts, the worse it is for the Israeli regime. So Iran does not want a regional war. We do not want a global economic crisis to develop, because we know that if the oil and gas is no longer available for the world, the global economy will collapse. But at the same time, Iran has no option to make sure that deterrence is established, because the United States will not yank hard on Netanyahu's leash.
All right, Professor, finally, and I want you to make it very brief, what do you think about the ceasefire talks that are currently ongoing in Egypt? Because we have the United States, we have Egypt, and we have the UAE playing a role in it, but Hamas did not send their representatives this time round.
The Israeli regime is carrying out a Holocaust. They've probably murdered hundreds of thousands of people so far. This is unprecedented in world history, having a Holocaust being carried out in front of a global audience. The Americans support the Holocaust. They're arming the Holocaust. They're helping them slaughter. Obviously, they're not an honest broker. Hamas has no reason to trust the American regime. And of course, the Israeli regime, which is carrying out the slaughter of women and children, is the manifestation of evil. So unless the conditions that were discussed months ago, and which the Americans accepted, unless those are accepted by the Israeli regime, then the regime will have to keep fighting and losing, and it can pretend that it's winning, but in the long run, we'll see who wins and who loses. Time will tell.
Time will tell, indeed. Sayed Mohammed Marandi is a professor at the University of Tehran. Professor, thank you for making time for us and for talking to us today.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.